Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in Modern. Today we're looking at Death's Shadow. Death's Shadow is a low-to-the-ground aggro tempo deck utilizing the namesake card and one of the top decks in the format. It abuses the life loss incurred by fetch and shock lands, as well as cards like Thoughtseize and Street Wraith to grow large Death Shadows and turn what would normally be the drawback of life loss into an advantage. The general game plan of Death Shadow is to strip the opponent's hand with discard spells and follow up with cheap, efficient threats. Alternatively, it's to use an early Dragon's Rage Channeler to sculpt your hand or Ragavan to get ahead on mana. The deck always has a red and black base and frequently splashes into blue for Drown in the Loch, Thrust Down, and Expressive Iteration. It can even go up to 4 colors, most often white. Shadow is the only deck where the painful fetch shock mana base is not a detriment but actually a positive. Shadow usually teams up with the dynamic duo of DRC and Ragavan, as well as Kroxa. Other versions mix in Murktide Regent for another big threat. Despite being an aggro tempo deck, it's remarkably good at playing the long game. Between the card advantage from Expressive Iteration and Kolaghan's Command, replaying Kroxa's, sculpting draws with DRC, and random hits off Ragavan, Shadow is able to keep up with the resources of traditional midrange and control decks. Death's Shadow is especially good against linear decks where it can pick apart their hand and aggressively pressure their life total. How to beat it. Death's Shadow struggles against decks with a glut of cheap efficient removal, redundant card advantage to recoup the losses incurred by Thoughtseize, and Chalice of the Void in particular since its only answer is Kolaghan's Command or Prismatic Ending out of the white variants. A strange play pattern occurs between Death's Shadow and any deck seeking to win via damage. Because Death's Shadow is bolstered by a low life total, it's usually correct to not attack the Shadow player until you can either swing for lethal or leave yourself in a much superior board position post-combat. Conversely, effects that cause the Shadow player to gain life are beneficial, the best being Solitude. Tips and tricks. Fetch lands and Street Wraith let you grow Shadow at instant speed. You can similarly point burn spells at yourself to do the same thing. It's usually correct to shock yourself with your shock lands even if you have nothing to cast with them in order to grow future Shadows. Dress Down turns Death Shadow into a 13/13 regardless of your life total. Dress Down makes you not have to sacrifice an unescaped Kroxa, though you won't get its discard ability either. You can flash it in on your opponent's end step and keep it until your end step. There are too many creatures that Dress Down punishes to go in depth, but a few notable ones are Primeval Titan, Karnstruct tokens, Murktide Regent, Walking Ballista, Arcbound Ravager, Sanctifier Onvek, Inkmoth Nexus, Dashed Ragavan, and Evoke Elementals. Understand how Death's Shadow works when damage is applied to it and you simultaneously, such as when you're attacked by multiple creatures and you block one. Damage done to you can cause Shadow's toughness to be greater than the damage marked on it, meaning it won't die. You can target yourself with Mishra's Bauble and, if you don't like the card, shuffle your deck with a fetch land before you draw. If you want to draw or not draw certain cards and you control DRC, you can cast spells in your upkeep to filter the draw. If you don't have Delirium, you can point Unholy Heat at your own DRC and use the card you surveil and or the heat to enable it without DRC dying. If you don't have Delirium and want to cast spells but don't want to attack with DRC, you can cast them in your second main phase. Creatures surveilled away by DRC can be retrieved later by Kolaghan's Command or escaped if they're Kroxa. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Death's Shadow. I want to thank my fellow players in the Magic community for whom sharing their experiences helps make these guides possible. You can find additional resources, such as an up-to-date deck list, in the description. If you think I left out anything important or got something wrong, please leave your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned to see what deck we look at next time.